into maybe a deeper dive in some of the questions in the Bible or concerns that we come along. Okay.
So I just want to mention that if you guys want, we can extend maybe half hour after Maghrib. If you have more questions, inshallah, since it's the last class, we can extend the class for half hour after Maghrib if you have more questions. Okay.
Okay. So today we're again, as I said, this is from the last class that we addressed, that is the Jesus God, is Bible, is the Word of God, and the combat kit. So this is from the last time. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Then atheism, their beliefs, why atheism is shirk or kufr, okay? And the Quran and Hadith, how to address it, and so forth. So the reason, this is Richard Dawkins, who was one of the four horsemen of atheism. Richard Dawkins, okay? Richard Dawkins. So Dawkins, he writes a letter to a Muslim, and he says nasty things. While my sister was sitting here, I don't want to read all that, but at least what he's saying is, stop whining, will you? Yes, I know, something, and then you're not allowed to drive a car, and you can't leave the house without a male relative, and your husband is allowed to beat you, and you'll be stoned to death if you commit adultery. So this is what Richard Dawkins is saying to a Muslim. I wrote a letter to her. So obviously that's why atheism becomes Muslim problem as well, when they start to attack without understanding the Islamic position. Okay? So as I mentioned, there are four horsemen of atheism: Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. These four are like the main people driving this atheism with full force. Okay? And they have written and authored these books, which are the bestsellers. They get so much support from the community, our US community, and then becomes bestsellers. And you could see Breaking the Spell, The God Delusion, God is Not Great, etc. So these type of books they have written, which has achieved a bestseller status. So I want to show you a little video. I think this is like a synopsis of atheism, and it helps us to understand that the relevance to us, inshallah. So I need to see why the sound is.
New Atheism, a strident anti-religious ideology, emerged from. Now let's get into it. In the years after the September 11 attacks, New Atheism, a strident anti-religious ideology, emerged from the sewer to challenge Islam and give the United States-led war on terror its desperately needed veneer of intellectual cover. Remember these guys? They dominated headlines, best bookseller lists, and online debates about religion everywhere. They became insanely rich by blaming 9/11 on Islam and rallying liberals behind the Bush administration's criminal invasion of Iraq. They did this by tying Islam to violence and savagery, while equating the religion of 2 billion Muslims to a virus that threatens human civilization. They want to vanquish Islam to the dustbin of history.
Islam is one of the great evils in the world, and I fear that we have a very difficult struggle there.
Why is the mother load a bad idea? Jeez. So we have, you can tell it when you see the extreme Muslims talk. They cannot wait. They cannot wait for death and destruction to overtake and overwhelm the world. They can't wait for what I would call, without ambiguity, a final solution.
Their faces were everywhere, and television talk show hosts couldn't get enough of them. Their lies and ignorance about Islam played a central role in convincing Western audiences that the war on terror was fundamentally necessary to control and suppress Muslim populations.
If you would call it the war on Islam, you want to put a flame under the rhetoric and make it even.
It's not a question of flame. The United States was attacked on the 11th of September in the name of Islam.
You see, they transformed atheism into a reactionary social and political movement by turning religious non-belief into an anti-religious crusade. Now, where is Whereas atheism on its own speaks only to non-belief in God and is not anti-anything or anti-anybody, the new atheists evangelized anti-religion by falsely asserting that anyone who believes in God is by default backwards and potentially violent. In their twisted and demented minds, the religious, particularly Muslims, are to be re-educated, shunned, or eradicated. As I revealed in a recent episode, I too was a new atheist for a 4-year period after witnessing an Al-Qaeda suicide attack in 2005. I blamed Islam for the violence I had witnessed. A strident as Hirsi Ali, Dawkins and Co. blamed Islam for 9/11. Needless to say, I've seen their vicious anti-Muslim animus and rhetoric at close quarters, having met many of them while speaking at their conferences and on their podcasts. But a few years after learning the Quran from an Islamic scholar in Indonesia, I wrote a book warning the public about the dangers new atheists pose to Muslims, secular democracy, and human rights.
Morleman uses his personal journey to issue a warning that although they hide behind slogans of rationalism and humanism, new atheists are bigoted and provide intellectual justifications for violence against those who do not buy into their worldview. As opposed to seeing all human on human violence to be primarily driven by religious beliefs, Morleman outlines why such a view is simpleton at best.
What makes new atheists especially dangerous is they have the same binary view of the world as ISIS or the Christian right. Because like them, they divide the world into two, good versus evil. In their minds, those who champion science and decry religion are the enlightened and righteous. But those who maintain a strong religious identity are to be shunned as backwards barbarians. Because if you, like they, actually believe Islam is a cancer or virus, then the logical next step is to eradicate the disease, which is exactly how Craig Hicks, a new atheist, interpreted that message when he murdered 3 Muslim students, execution style, at the University of North Carolina in 2015.
In court, they told him that all 3 victims lived a life to be proud of, that Hicks only saw them for their Islamic religion and never tried to get to know them as the people that they were.
They dedicated their lives to Allah, God. They died having never ever given their parents, their siblings, their friends, or their colleagues an unpleasant day.
But the new atheist movement that Hicks and millions of others like him belong to has since disappeared from view. They are no longer relevant, no longer visible. So it is new atheism, not Islam, that has been vanquished to the dustbin of history. As Islam continues to grow, even as rates of religiosity decline in the West. So if we are to declare Islam the winner and new atheism the loser, then the question is, how did this happen? Well, what happened is simple. Islam speaks to truth, hope, and justice, whereas new atheism sputters only lies, generalizations, and prejudice towards the religious belief of 2 billion Muslims. And where Islam is humble and noble, new atheism is self-aggrandizing and conceited, which is why Islam has stood firm for 1,500 years, whereas new atheism died barely a decade after slinking out of the gutter. You see, new atheists got away with their bogus claims about Islam being responsible for 9/11 when there was an absence of data about suicide bombings. Eventually, however, that data came when actual academics like Professor Robert Pate studied and analyzed the motivation behind every suicide attack that has occurred since 1980. He found the real driving force behind so-called Islamic terrorism to be a cocktail of motivations, including politics, humiliation, revenge, and sometimes even altruism, but never Islam. For instance, Pate found.
Okay, so you get the idea about the new atheism focused. So you get the idea that the new atheism was focused against Islam after 9/11, and then these 4 horsemen, they just took a war, waged a war against Islam, and then they want to justify all the invasions that took place in Islamic countries. Okay, just sort of a side note that we know that, and which is Islam doesn't support terrorism at all, but there are roughly 2,700 plus people died in 9/11. In retaliation, we, the U.S., we killed roughly. I think I was looking at the numbers. It's close to like 2.5 million or 3 million, something like that. In millions, like 3 million, 4 million people.
This is in Iraq and
Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, all those countries.
I was born in that.
I think 3 or 4 million. I was looking at the numbers that we killed. We Muslim, we Americans, we killed them. Okay, so anyway, so this is the background that we want to learn about the atheism, and as we go along, you're going to see. So atheism is incoherent. It doesn't make sense. People, the academicians or the biologists or scientists, they really, brag about it, and we're going to see how we can easily address that. Okay. So I collected these points from different places. I was listening to Abdul Yusuf as well, Sheikh Abdul Yusuf. So some of these ones are from his talk about the atheism. So one atheist presented in front of God Almighty. So he died in front of God Almighty, and so God Almighty asked this atheism, so what's up? What's going on? So the atheist said that God, we have gotten rid of you. So we have gotten rid of you. He died and presented in front of God, and God asked, what's up? What's going on? So he said, God, we took care of you, got rid of you. So the guy said, how come we took care of that? He said, well, we figured out how the universe works. And he said, God asked him, okay, how does it work? He said, if you take this cosmic dust. So God said, hold on, bring your own cosmic dust. Don't take my cosmic dust. Bring your own cosmic dust. So that's the key thing to remember. Nothing comes out of nothing. Something cannot come out of nothing. This is an important thing to remember, okay? The first Big Bang, it starts from a massive energy. Where does the massive energy comes from? The first cell, where does it come from? These are all food for thought, okay? So naturalism, again, atheists believe in naturalism, all the natural laws that we have, the laws of physics, that's what is driving this world. And these are their arguments, a contingency argument and infinite regression. So there are two basically terminologies used, who's my father, and who's his father, and who's his father, who's his father, ultimately Adam al-Islam, and who created Adam al-Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it stops there. Okay, so there's the infinite regression. And then they say, okay, so if Adam was created by God Almighty, then who created God Almighty? Obviously, it stops there. You understand? Okay, and then another important thing to remember is that Darwin is not just a theory, it's a Darwinism. It's a whole dogma. It's like a whole theology for scientists. They think that Darwin is like a prophet, something like that. Like they really, whenever you talk to atheists and they talk about the theory of evolution, they will talk about Darwin said this, Darwin found this out. They think that Darwin is really like a prophet. Okay, and then another point that he was mentioning is that chaos doesn't break order. And the example is, you have a watch or you have a phone, and you think that this phone it came out by itself from nothing or from after billions of years. That doesn't make sense. There's a creator. Someone designed this phone. Somebody put all the instruments inside. It didn't happen by chance. Okay? Another thing that they did a study on children, and in Japan, in England, and those studies, these are the children which were like 4 or 5 years old, really small children, and they all internally have this fitra, the natural predilection, the natural innate predilection for every human being have, and that points towards the creator. Although these were non-denominational, they were from different places, but they all came up to a deity, a creator. You have a question? Okay. Okay, so atheism comes from a word atheos, which means godless. Theism means, believing in God. Atheism, not believing in God. Or rejection of the belief that any deity exists. Okay, atheism comes from ilhad, and ilhad comes from lahad. And lahad is, the grave when we bury a person who a dead body, and lahad, yeah. And then there's an out-pocketing, outward, where we put the body in. That outward pocketing is lahad. So lahad comes from that. This is deviation. It is not normal. Okay? And neo-atheism started from 9/11 afterwards, and they were targeting religion, but particularly Islam, and justified all these wars that were waged on these countries in the height of atheism. Okay, and then why atheism a Muslim problem? Because atheism is a shirk, it's a kufr, and then also atheism is targeting Islam. And another important thing is the academicians, the academia scholars, the university educationalists, teachers, many of them, up to 37% of them are atheists. So we're sending our children over there, and they are coming across these atheists. About 1 billion atheists exist in the worldwide. 1 billion. The fifth most common ideology exists out there, atheism. Okay, and then you can see in this Pew Research, there's a graph going upwards of atheism, 16% to almost 30%, and came down just a little bit in 2023. You see that graph? And then this is not a surprise, but the LGBTQ, you can, more than 50%, they don't believe in any religion. Okay, they're atheists, and that's kind of understandable. But the surprising part here is 1/3 of the US women claim to be LGBTQ. That's mind-boggling. 1/3 of the women of US, and this is according to the Gallup research, they identify themselves into LGBTQ. Old atheism was, before they were not bothered by religion. Old atheism was okay, and we were not bothered by them either. But this new atheism was a wave against more focus on Islam. So I told you about this, the four horsemen. One of them is Sam Harris. I wrote down here at the bottom. This is in 2006. Sam Harris said, if I could wave a magic wand and get off either rape or religion, I would get off religion. Look what he's talking about. And he's saying, I think more people are dying as a result of our religious myths than as a result of any other ideology. And which is wrong. It's a wrong statement. The claims of atheists is not a religion, and they say faith is blind, and that's not true for Islam. Okay, we will come down to that also. Science has disproven God. We are using our five senses. We are using our physical rules, laws, to identify a metaphysical, supernatural deity. That's not going to work. If you are trying to use these tools, like your senses, and you're trying to find something which is beyond the senses, you're not going to be able to find like that. Okay, so that's a wrong statement that science has disproven God. There's no evidence for God. We don't need God. Religion poisons everything. Evil and human suffering disprove God. Morality doesn't come from God. So this is something called subjective morality. We all have our own moralities, but this objective morality, the Quran, the Rasulullah gives it to us. That's the objective morality. That's the standard that we hold up. Okay? And belief in miracles is a superstition. So the atheism cannot answer these questions. There are certain questions I put on here, but I just want to, in the interest of time, keep moving that. Like they cannot tell us, where did the first cell come from? Where did the first Big Bang, where did the energy come from? Who created time? So the Big Bang happened how many years ago, according to the science? 4.5 billion or 13.8? 13.8 billion. And the life started about 3.8 billion years ago. And their focus is that if we give enough time, then the things will evolve, the biology will evolve, the organism will evolve. However, who created time? Where did the time come from? We know there's a beginning of this universe, what was before universe? And they don't have the answer to that, okay? Alrighty, so then few terminology I want to tell you. And subhanAllah, amazing part is, whether it's atheism or we learn about the Christianity, we learn about different challenges, evolution, Quran gives us the answer, subhanAllah. Quran gives us the answer. So Surah Dahr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, that has there not come upon a man a period of time when he was not a thing even mentioned, was nothing. And then Allah created all that, and then things happen. Okay, so Surah Dahr. Remember, I told you Dahriya, atheist. So Surah Dahr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replying back to them, and Mulhid is the one, or Dahriya is the one who is atheist, and then atheism is denying God absolutely. Agnosticism, what is agnosticism?
They believe there's they believe in a higher power, they just don't have any.
Yeah, so they're confused. Yeah, if there's a higher power, and if there's a higher power, there may be a higher power. So they in that confusion area. Atheist is clear, we don't have a God, and we, alhamdulillah, Muslim, we have a God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And then atheism is a kufr and shirk. So obviously, why it is a shirk? Kufr is easy to understand, denying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Why is it a shirk? Because when you deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you deny His powers, then something else is going to take that position. So your science can become your God, your own whims and desires can become a God. And actually, again, I will come to the verse as well, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him, have you seen that person who has taken his whims and desires as God? Okay, so again, this is an intrinsic part. It's the Quran, alhamdulillah, gives us the answers and solution. And then, so I already answered that. Surah Jasiyah gives a lot of answers towards the atheism. So Jasiyah is very, very helpful with that, okay? And so I'm going to touch base briefly about what is Darwin's theory, because Darwinism is one of their pillar of the atheists. Atheism and talk. Okay, Darwin said this, as I mentioned earlier. So Darwin said 3.8 billion years ago, there was a common ancestor. That there was one cell, the life began from that, and then it became evolved through natural selection and random mutation. Natural selection means that the survival of the fittest, and then the mutations took place over time. The species started to become more and more evolved. Ultimately, human being occurred. We don't believe in that part, because Quran tells us Allah created Adam alayhi salam. Before that, things that happened, it could have happened. We're not concerned about that. If that science proves that, fine. But the creation of Adam alayhi salam did not come from chimpanzee. He wrote a book. Darwin wrote a book, The Origin of Species. This was his book, Origin of Species. He took a 5 years long tour around the world, and he sailed, and he went on the island, and he collected all this data and wrote this book. In chapter 6, he criticizes his own theory because he doesn't have translational species. All species are like absolute. There's no in between. You don't see a species between chimpanzee and a human, right? So the chimpanzee and then the human, nothing in between. So that's the problem they have. Fossil record is not perfect. They always brag about fossil record, and the Cambrian explosion, they say all of a sudden there was a massive diversification of organisms occur. Okay, so these are the things to just let you know about what Darwin's theory is about. But Darwin theory have problems. It's based on probability, it's based on assumptions, and have disputes among the academicians. Like even the academics, they have a lot of criticism on Darwin's theory. Question on that? Okay, the next thing is the Big Bang. So these are the two things the atheists will always talk about. Darwin's theory of evolution and Big Bang, okay? And as I mentioned, Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, answers their questions. Whatever the questions they have, Quran has those answers. Alhamdulillah. So Big Bang theory, when did it was discovered? In 1973. It's not too long ago. And Quran was revealed 1400 years ago. So we knew that way before the scientists found this out. Okay? And Surah Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 30, do the disbelievers not realize that the heavens and earth were once one mass, then we split them apart. Okay, so that's the Big Bang. So the question is, where does energy come from? So that energy comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? How can you deny the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How beautiful is a baby is born, it's in your hand. How can you say that this came out by chance? It's so beautiful. I couldn't resist. I just wanted to put it in here. That, we cannot resist Allah's creation. SubhanAllah. So, have you seen him who takes his own lust, vain desires as his ilah? That's Surah Jasiyah. Beautiful verses. Surah Tur, or were they created by nothing? This is again an amazing counter to the atheists. Were they created by nothing, or were they the creators of themselves? Or did they create the heavens and the earth, or that they are not certain? This verse can easily answer any atheist question. Were they created themselves? Who created them? Or they are the creator of themselves who created the heavens and the earth. Who created them? So therefore, you can push back with that argument. Again, this is Surah Baqarah. Have you seen, how can you be the unfaithful to Allah? The challenging, Allah subhanahu is challenging. How can you be unfaithful to Allah, seeing that you were lifeless and He gave you life? And then He will make you die, and then He bring you to life, and then you will be brought back to Him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them that you were given life by Allah, He will die, He will make you die. So death comes to us through Allah's will, okay? There might be factors in between, but the life is taken out by Allah's will. Nobody can take our life. We live as long as Allah wants us to live, okay? And then in chapter 35, Surah Fatir, also Allah says, O mankind, remember the favor of Allah upon you. Is there any creator other than Allah who provides you from the heaven and the earth? There's no deity worthy of worship except Him. So how are you then being led astray? Again, these are challenges that Allah is giving. Okay, and then Surah Jasiyah again. Surah Jasiyah and the two surahs, remember, Surah Anbiya, Surah Jasiyah. Surah Jasiyah say Allah calls you to live, then He calls you to die, and then He will assemble you for the day of resurrection, about which there is no doubt, but most of the people don't know. I mean, I can go on and on. These are so beautiful verses that amazes you at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is answering those concerns and questions. Okay, this is the question I was telling, that the Islam is not a blind faith. This is one of the allegations that the atheists have on religion, but Islam is different. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in multiple places in the Quran, right here, He tells us in multiple places that Quran requires us to think and ponder in the creation of the heaven and the earth. Ponder, think, look around yourself. And if there's a challenge that Allah gave, look at the sky, look around, and do you see any fault in the creation of Allah? and your eye will come back desperate. You will not find any fault in the creation of Allah. So Quran challenges us to ponder. Quran doesn't want us to be a blind follower, rather than have a critique and uh, reasoning for us being Muslim. So the key concept of thinking is tadabbur, tafakkur, and akal. Okay, this is also the concept of thinking. Tadabbur is a thinking part. Tafakkur is reflection, and the akal is reasoning. Okay, the three concepts or a tool that we have for pondering on the Quran. By the way, Jazakallah khair, Brother Adil Ali, he already have put on all these notes that we're sharing with you in that the DFW Dawa, in their website, in the channel that we have. You have all these notes there. You can get it from there.
So if you go to like a day 2, part 2, or week 2, part 2, it's there. Okay, all this.
Yeah, all these slides, the notes of these slides will be there, inshallah. Okay, so what do the atheists believe? So they don't believe in afterlife. Okay, they're lost in time. For them, it's present. They don't believe in before the life was created or after they die. They don't believe in that. They don't believe in anything unseen. So they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't believe in angels. They don't believe in Satan. They don't believe in heaven or a hellfire. They don't believe in any of that. Anything is unseen. They don't believe in that. They don't believe in any supernatural or metaphysical existence. So when someone is atheist, what happens to the person? Atheism is going to bring desperation, because if they run through some kind of a test in their life, what they're going to fall on? We come across challenges. Okay, this is from the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's going to reward us for this. I'm going to be patient. He'll be happy with me. Allah tells me in the Quran, be patient. Allah loves the one who are patient. So forth. We can lean on our religion, but atheists have nothing to lean on. That's why they commit suicide and they have depression in their life. They have no place to go to. And the biggest thing is they become materialistic. Their thinking is all material. Their life around or it revolves around them or themselves. Okay, I want this, I want that, I don't like this. It all becomes me and myself. That's what happens when you don't believe in religion. There's no objective morality. How do you get objective morality? How do we define morality, by the way? Morality. How do we define morality?
Islam, morality obviously comes from God.
Yeah. So atheists say we define morality based on our society. Whatever society decides, that's our morality. This is what the atheists will say. So you can ask, okay, so if society says, say, incest is okay, is that be okay? So obviously, we will say no. Quran tells us, Rasulullah tells us against it. It's not that you just decide whatever and that becomes normal. No, there's an objective morality we have, and we follow that. What's the purpose of life? Atheism takes away that purpose of life from you. We have a purpose of life. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. We have a purpose of life, right? Atheists have no purpose of life. They come here, they make money, or they strive to, make money, build mansions, and gone. Unfortunately, they don't know where we're coming from, where we have come from, and where we're going. They don't know what happens after life in the hereafter. And the Pew Research said that actually religious people did better than the atheists when it comes to the social problems. Here is another thing: is this is the Pew Research. The effect of atheism on morals is that 48% LGBT identify with their religion. So less than half of them will identify with a religion. Only 17% say that the religion is important for them. So only 17% say religion is important, and less than half of them will say they belong to a religion. Okay, so, and then, this is an interesting slide. And actually Christians also say this, that God can do anything. So the question to you is, can God do anything or everything?
It's in sense, possibility.
Can God do anything in,
No, right? How many says,
okay,
ahead.
so go
So
ahead.
you're asking questions saying.
Can God do anything?
can God do everything?
Can you do everything?
Everything.
They can do everything? Allah's not like,
Let's hear
Okay.
from the people here.
Allah can do everything, but the thing is, He has said how He is described. Like, if you're religious, you know, Allah has described Himself how He is, whatever He knows. So He doesn't go out of His role, but He is the ability there.
so, okay, so, okay, so
Let's a whole bunch of people.
let's hear it, then I'll answer that. Yes, what you saying?
And the ayah says, فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. Whatever He wishes, He can do.
Okay, let's hear.
Okay.
Let's hear back there.
Yes.
God can do everything, but He can do everything, but He can't do things that contradicts His nature.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the
Yeah.
answer.
How about you?
I was going to say the same thing, like, He can do anything but anything He wants, but His sifat He's given Himself, He won't do anything that goes against that.
There you go.
Can he become a man?
No, that's not His quality.
Yeah. So see, so this is his limitation. He cannot become a man. He cannot go against his own words. What he has said, he will not go against those words. And then, can he throw you out of his domain? Can God Almighty throw you out of his domain? Everything belongs to
Everything
him.
belongs to him.
How come he cannot throw you out of his domain? Can he create another God? Can God create another God? Can God create a rock that he cannot lift? See? So there are things, these are, silly questions, but they are there. But certainly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do immoral things. No. He will not lie or he will not cheat. Can he be tempted? And so on. So, can he increase his knowledge? Can God increase his knowledge?
He always is.
His
You
knowledge
already
is
have perfect
perfect.
knowledge, right?
Yeah, he is a perfection. He cannot increase his knowledge. Or, can he get tired, fatigue, sleep, slumber, forgetfulness? So no, he doesn't have any weakness. Okay, so there are things that these are interesting things to think about. Okay. Let's see what else I want to share with you. In the history, there has been multiple. I have a slide on history as well. Oh, this is another thing. Yeah. So what leads to the atheism? What causes atheism? Okay, too much suffering in the world. People say, if the God is, say, transcendental, if He's all powerful, why He takes away the suffering from the world? Or, why, He helped me, why I asked for help, and why He didn't help me, and so forth. So these are things that they may become atheists, but, Allah has a plan. We only see, our eyes see this much. Allah has we see a micropixel, He has a whole universe in front of Him. So He knows best. And as human beings, we should submit to His will, do the best we can in the given circumstances, and rely on His judgment, inshallah. Okay? So, I cannot see God. Why can't we experience God through our five senses? So the answer to that is, can you see black holes? Can you see gravity? We all know there's a gravity, drop down, but can you see gravity? Can you see magnetic fields? Can you see love, affection, hate? I mean, the emotions you can see, but you still believe in them, right? So not everything is going to be tested by your five senses. Alrighty, so the causes, population. Okay, I think this is it. My time is up. Here's Brother Adil. He's teaching all the group you could see here in the picture. Yes.
Is it family to family it goes, or individual can become it? Because lots of Muslims nowadays, they are not really good Muslims, not good and not believe in Islam. So they deny so many things because they do not have real Islamic teaching. So it is creating from religion.
So what you're saying is that it runs in the families?
Yeah, it is individual choice or they are learning from the family.
Yeah, so sister is asking the question, the atheism may run in the families, or it is that they are having choice? So the answer is obviously, we have to be a practicing Muslim. We have to ingrain those values in our children. And every generation, inshallah, should be better from the previous generation. Because Rasulullah said that if our today is not better than yesterday, we're going to be the loser one. Okay, this is very important to remember. Our today should be better than yesterday, inshallah. So we keep progressing, okay? Keep improving. So that's one thing. Second thing is that there are 2 billion Muslims, and rest of the 6 billion are non-Muslims. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us, gave a gift of Islam, that we were born to Muslim family. What about the 6 billion Muslim? What is their fault that they were not born in a Muslim family? Because we got the gift of Islam, because all of us sitting here are all born Muslims. So what is the answer to that?
No answer, but they are limited from them who become a Muslim, they are the winner. They are the winner. And Allah SWT gave knowledge to everyone. They can search for real knowledge.
Yeah.
Because in Christian church, some what is we call the priest, somebody. So they understand and they know and they became a Muslim in privacy. They do whatever he needs to do. Recently, one became a Muslim priest from the church.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone can search knowledge. So searching knowledge, and they become the real. So those who do not believe in anything, they become atheist. So if they can become atheist, they can become Muslim too.
Yeah. So, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, again, scholars might know better. This is the way I understand. And I'm not a scholar. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, sister.
Maybe they grant you to choose, maybe you choose the attack. I don't know.
Yeah, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created created our spirits, arwah. Allah created us. All the mankind was there. And this covenant is called covenant of lust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked everyone, Lastu bi rabbikum, who's your Lord? And all of us, whether we're Muslims or Muslims, we all said, Qalu bala, ya Allah, it is you. So all the mankind have that in their heart, in their soul, that knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number one. Number two, having a racial Muslim means nothing in the eyes of Allah on the day of judgment. It has to be, it should be your voluntary being a Muslim. This should be your, like voluntarily, you have to be Muslim. You have to believe and practice, and then you will be acknowledged in the eyes of Allah. If you're just doing a ritual and just the nomin on things, your name may be Muslim, but in the eyes of Allah, it may not be Muslim. Okay, so I think that's may answer that question. Yes, sister.
Just wanted to add that, and we all have to either we reject or we choose. And so a lot of these atheists try to say in the hadith that Allah has, like we all of us have witnessed a miracle. So that when he shows us the signs, we should either we're rejecting it or we're accepting it. So a lot of these people who become atheists, it's because they reject it. And then also there are a lot of Muslims too, that unfortunately when they take higher knowledge in universities and they take classes such as philosophy and sciences, unfortunately a lot of those professors are atheists.
Yeah.
So they become fundamentalists, or they take away their beliefs, those Muslims, and then they accept that atheism. So unfortunately, there's a lot of diverse people who do become atheists. It's not just, from the start, from the beginning, people believe in God.
This is a paradox, It's a paradox that the more knowledge you have, it should bring closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a paradox when they got so much knowledge and now they start denying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I just wanted to add on, there was one scholar who was giving an example of that. He said he knew someone somewhere in New York or something. And mashallah, when he was a teenager, he knew the Quran, and he made a lot of non-Muslims Muslims. And subhanAllah, mashallah, he did a lot of great works, and he was very intelligent. He got into some science, I forget what it was, but he got so much high-end PhD, and unfortunately, he became a believer. He didn't believe in God.
This is really strange to me.
Yeah, it's
This
strange,
is
right?
really, really strange. I don't know. I mean, my feeling is the more I begin to explore atheism
I don't think it's
and
Islam.
Christianity,
Non-Muslim.
the more it convinces me about the truth of Islam. By God, wallahi. Atheism is a joke. And there are things that atheists themselves cannot answer. There are things. Sister asked why there are certain people, they're like this and they're like that. Look, Allah has given you a free will. If you choose a path that you feel is your own way and you want to follow your own desires and want to be cool with the professors because entire faculty in engineering or biology are all atheists and I want to be the part of that herd, Allah says go to it. You want to be that? Go. You want to be misguided deliberately by your own whims and desires? You're free. Where would you go? You're going to come to me, right? Is there an escape from death? 1/3 of the Quran is replete with what? With warnings. Clear warnings. You're going to return to me. This world that you see is nothing but an illusion. Allah is telling you constantly, look, you're going to return to me. You're going to return to me. Allah is telling you constantly about the heaven and hell. Why is there a need for that? Allah said, don't get disillusioned by this worldly things. But you want to follow atheism and you want to follow agnosticism and other isms, except Allah. Okay. So there is a certain thing called fitrat salima, which is a righteous nature. that we're all born with. Okay? But you can corrupt it. Allah did not make you like that. It is you, if you're going to follow your own desires, it's going to corrupt your nature. Okay? So I'm just going to leave it at that. But I can talk about this all day long, inshallah. All right, so concept of atheism and how to deal with atheism. I'm sure you must have come across a lot of atheists in your colleges and in school, right? How do you talk to them? Does anybody have any encounter with atheists? None? You had, what was your experience?
So they are very sure of themselves, like they're right.
Okay.
I mean, proof. They always ask for proof. This, proof
Right.
that.
Right.
And they question. I mean, if we give them a proof, I don't believe. I mean, they question.
Sure.
Maybe if you put it
Yeah.
out, they question that, like, where do you get it from? Like, there's no
Right.
proof that that's true. They have to see it to believe it.
Right? Yeah, that's good. So we're going to teach you how to deal with atheists. Okay? Very simple. Very, very simple. Okay? So let's get started, inshallah. Atheism, Dr. Thakar described as the lack of belief in God. Okay? All the people who do not believe in God are called atheists. And people become atheists for different reasons. There's not just one reason. Okay? There are emotional reasons, your upbringing, first of all. That plays a major part. If both of your parents are away from religion and they don't follow any faith, and you're probably grew up in like a hippie culture, very likely you're going to become an atheist, right? Because nobody ever taught you anything about God. They teach you about things like, respect all religion and love everybody and make sure you treat everybody like human. We have those people, right? Right. So, yeah, love them and don't harm anything and don't harm the animal and don't kill a little ant there or a bee or whatever. Good things. Okay. So they don't follow any particular religion. They're atheists. I don't believe in a particular God. I believe in humanity. Have you heard that?
Yes.
I don't believe in any God. I believe in humanity. I'm a champion for humanity. Okay? So those are atheists. Okay? Then you have your life experiences. My mother was sick and I prayed to God for her health and recovery, but unfortunately she died. That means there is no God. God did not hear my prayer. Had he been there, he would have saved my mother. Right? So I became an atheist. I don't believe in any God now. There's no point praying to God. That's your life experiences. Then you have your personal reflection on faith. I got a lot of people who are like that. I have read the Quran, and there are things in the Quran which are scientifically untrue. That means some man in the desert wrote this and made these errors. And all the books are man-written, and there are errors in them, and they were written like 1,500 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years ago. Who knows who wrote them? I have not seen God myself. God would come to me and tell me, right? One of those things. I need a proof. I need to see God. If I can see him in a dream and can tell me, look, I wrote this book. Why don't you follow it? Until I hear that from God, I'm not going to follow you. We have those people, right? Then you have another unanswered questions from different faith leaders. Look, I went to the Maulana, or I went to a sheikh, and I asked him questions, and he couldn't answer them. He had no answer for the question that I asked. So that made me turn away from Allah. We have those guys. I've met them all the time. Sheikh was unable to answer my questions. Okay, all right, whatever. So they're close to over 1 billion atheists currently, just like Dr. Saab said. over 1 billion. Okay? And they're probably growing right now, whatever, China, you have Russia. Europe is a very large population of atheists. After World War I, World War II, they had repeated wars. And they realized that religion is the cause of all these wars, so we're going to be atheists now. We're not going to follow any religions. That's yours. Okay? Agnosticism, as you have rightly described, it's the belief of God for them is unknown. Okay? They're not sure about that. So basically it's a philosophical position that people take that existence of a divine or supernatural being cannot be proven or known. There's no way to find that out. That's agnosticism. Then what you have called deists. You know what the deists are, right? The deists are founding fathers, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson. They were deists. They believed in the existence of God, but they did not believe in any organized religion. Okay? Thomas Jefferson himself, he wrote his own Bible. How many of you know that? He wrote his own Bible. He took out all these verses from the Bible that he felt were like added or did not make any sense. And he wrote his own Bible. Thomas Jefferson did that. Okay? So, and then you have pantheists. Pantheists are basically the people that identify God with the universe and everything in it. For example, Advaita, the Hindu sect, that believe that God is in everything. God is in the flower, God is in a cow, God is in a monkey, God is in a snake, God is in a tree, everything. God transcends everything in every living. Those are pantheists. Okay? Now, if you ever talk to atheists, he will never ever be able to provide you with clear proof that God does not exist. Atheism itself is a belief, whether you like it or not. Atheism itself is a belief. They believe in certain things, that God does not exist.
But even that, like, you cannot prove it, then it won't be true. But
No.
people are saying that if they cannot prove that God doesn't exist, so
Right.
how prove that it's true?
Right. So burden of proof is upon them, right? They say, well, God does not exist. Well, how do you know it doesn't exist? So we're going to walk you through this argument, right? So his only argument for them is like Dr. Doksab described, like theory of evolution. You see, I believe in science. I don't believe in anything that I cannot prove. But can science prove everything? Right. It can't. Can science prove supernatural phenomena? No. What is a science? Science is a study where things can be proven in a lab with repeated experiments, right? There are certain things that science cannot prove. We know that for a fact. Okay? You cannot, science, certainly there are certain things, okay? So, when you're going to have a dialogue with an atheist, just start with something like this, okay? How did universe came into existence 13.8 billion years ago? What is the answer he's going to give, according to science? Big Bang, right? That's what he's going to say. Excellent. Very good. You have the right answer. But you see, Big Bang is an effect